lights in the desert sky, one turning around the other, fire dancing in the night, in every changing color. How strange to be alive, how strange to be alone. Took so long to realize I'm never going home. And if I turn back now, I'll stay where I have always been. Feels like I'll never find a way, but I saw light, I saw light. I saw lights in the dead of night, and I played the final number, the doorway to the other side. Just tell her that I love her. How strange to come alive at the end of all I know. It took so long to realize I'm never going home. And if I turn back now, I'll stay who I have always been. No one will come to save me, but I saw light, I saw light.
And that's it. Friends, welcome. So glad that you are here. Friends, today, this is the 30-day challenge. I just figured we'd start off with a little bit of fun there. That is one of the newest tunes from my band, Gabriel the Bull. It's not out yet, so literally you are the first people to ever hear it. A song about UFOs. Anyhow, more on that possibly later, but really, friends, what today is all about, it's about the 30-day challenge. We're doing these once a month now, getting folks who are new to guitar or have been playing guitar for a long time and they're frustrated, and I'm like, look, I've done this a little bit. I've taught 10,000 lessons. I've got 700,000 people in this course, and friends, I promise you that it will do for you what it's done for them. So in any case, whether you're taking lessons from me or somebody else, I'm here for you. I want to get your questions answered today. And if you need help, my gift to you, the first link in the description of this video will give you access to the Unstoppable Guitar System Standard, a system that's been around for over 10 years now online. I keep revamping it, making it better and better, over 1,000 lessons in it now. And you're going to get the standard version of it for absolutely free today. It's my gift to you, and it's like the first 36 lessons or something like that. I can promise you that if you have any questions about guitar, at least when it comes to foundational things, like 95% of the stuff you're going to be using all the time, it's going to be found in this course, and it's literally delivered to you at for nothing, for free, because, well, for love is why, okay? There you go. So I'm going to get your questions in real time today, and we're going to be talking about some basics We'll be talking about some basic left-hand techniques, some basic right-hand techniques, strumming, picking, fretting, chording, those sorts of things. Because look, at the end of the day, it comes down to the left and right hand. It comes down to fretting, and it comes down to attacking the strings. That's it, okay? There's variations on all that, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a grasp of that, and some basic music knowledge, okay? It's a trifecta, if you will, okay? You gotta manipulate the strings to create the chords and melodies that you want. You gotta hit the strings so that they sound, so that we get to hear your beautiful melodies and chord progressions, right? They have to vibrate, so you got to attack them in some way, whether you're using a pick, using your fingernail, using the tips of your fingers, using finger picks, whatever it is that you're using, okay? And we can talk about some of that stuff today. But nonetheless, those are the basics of it, and we need to have a basic understanding of how music works. Friends, this stuff is so elementary, it's so easy, but guess what? Everybody, just about everybody, doesn't do it in the beginning. They try to skip. They say, I don't need that basic stuff. I'm better than that. I need to go to the advanced stuff. When in fact, the stuff that they're watching their favorites do, I don't care if it's Stevie Ray Vaughan or who it is, they have the foundations down so pat. And a lot of times, that's all they're doing is the foundations. It's just that they're doing it with a lot of finesse and a lot of taste, and it seems like they're doing some magic there, right? But in the end, when you watch a master do something skillfully, as simple as it may be, it doesn't look like it because they do it so well, okay? So that's the sort of thing that we're going to be discussing today. And I'll be taking your questions in real time. So this is what we're going to do. I do see that there's some questions already, and we're going to get to those, but I want to make sure that we at least cover some basics here, okay? So first off, we're going to talk about some basic fretting technique. We're going to talk about some basic picking technique. I can show you in the course if you want. We'll take a vote. But basically, there's a ton of stuff in there for you. It's step by step, a lot of foundational, motivational, psychological, everything that's needed. A lot of people don't understand it, but there's a big psychological obstacle to overcome when it comes to guitar. And this is why I believe with my courses and what have you, I've been so successful, is because I address those things. A lot of guitar teachers don't address those, unfortunately. Some of them do, and great for the ones that do. But the ones that don't, it's unfortunate because they're not able to help people because they leave that part out, and it's such a huge part of it. It has things to do with, like, your hands aren't too small. I don't care how small your hands are. You're not the only person with that first idea that, but Eric, you don't understand my hands. Look, man, I met a guy the other day who he's a buddy of mine now. These fingers were this short. I don't know what happened, if he had an accident. We just met, but he's a great guy. This finger was long, the other ones were like this short. And he plays guitar, and he plays it really well. And he says, in fact, there's some things that he could do now that he couldn't do before because of his hand. So, things like that, obstacles. I wasn't born into a musical family. I don't have talent. My hands are too small. I don't have enough time. That may be a real one because you do have to practice, right? But whatever, if it's anything other than practice and actual, I say study. It's fun. I mean, that's why they call it playing guitar, right? So without that, yes, absolutely, 100% will fail. There's zero great guitar players who didn't practice and did not invest time and energy into their instrument. Zero. So let's get that myth out of the way. It doesn't happen. No one's born a guitar player. If you want to say that, if it makes you feel better, go ahead, but it's going to be at your own demise on the instrument because it makes it magical, and it's not magical. It's literally practice, okay? And it's also taken away from the people who are great by saying that they just got it, that was just a gift given to them. That is not at all a compliment to say, well, you were just born with that. When Stevie Ray Vaughan wouldn't go out, he wouldn't go out and party and what have you in the early days. He would just work on his guitar. So it's insulting as well to do that to them. So let's not do that, right? Let's understand that it's about practice, and it's about specific practice. Now, let's talk about that, the specific practice. knowing what to do is everything, and knowing what not to do is everything, because if you're practicing all these things, right, there's a million great videos on YouTube about guitar, and you probably only need a handful of them, at least to get started and to be really good, okay? All the other ones, nothing wrong with them, but you're, cart before the horse type of thing. So let's talk about some of those basic things that we need to know, because at the end of the day, it's about the fretting hand, it's about the picking hand, and it's about some basic knowledge of music. We're going to cover some of that today, but I'm not going to go in too terribly deep depth with it, because that's why I'm giving you the course today, and I want to get your questions answered. Okay, so we'll cover some basics. It'll spark you to ask some questions. We'll jump in there. Thank you so much, Ken, for mentioning Django Reinhardt, who's one of my favorite guitar players ever, and had these fingers just completely gnarled up, like couldn't use them anymore. So he used 2 fingers and could play way faster than I could, and played chords, and just look him up, Django Reinhardt, if you need the spelling there. I think Ken got it right. That being said, let's talk about those basics. We'll answer some questions. I'm going to be here with you for a total of an hour from the beginning of the program. We're 12 minutes in. Okay, so here we go. So let's talk about some basics here. I'm going to give you, this is essentially, if you were a ninja and it was battle time for you today, and I said, do you want to live? And you said, yeah. And I said, okay, here are the things you need to know. I'm going to tell you those things that you need to know on the guitar. Now, obviously, there's a ton more to know, but these are the things that you're going to build every other thing upon. And if you really, truly know these, you can go out and you cannot have your head chopped off, okay? So let's do that. I don't like to have my head chopped off, neither do you. Let's learn a little bit about this beautiful instrument, and then we'll get to some questions, cool? So when we're talking about fretting, and I'm not going to use any of my effects or anything like that. I'm just going to play just like this, okay? Maybe what I'll do is I'll take out all that delay and all that reverb there, so we just have a basic idea of, oh boy, got a lot of reverb. Dear Lord, hold on just one second here. Let me get another patch here. I don't want to distract you. There we go. That's all we need. Okay, so 3 things. 3 things to know, Rig. We're going to knock them all out. I'm going to tell you the first 3 things that you need to know. Fretting hand. Thumb. In the beginning, should not rest up here. I know, you probably just watched me and my thumb was all over here. That's okay as you become a more relaxed player and you learn the technique. But in the beginning, it's the kiss of death. Don't do it. Take your thumb and get it down here more towards the back of the bottom of the guitar, like right there, okay? If it's here, it's all right, but like down here, it's even better, because what that does is it really allows you to get your hand out front. Now, because our hands are weak in the beginning, fretting and everything is going to feel awkward. It does for every single person who ever picks up the guitar. It's not you. You're not the weirdo. It's the guitar, okay? So in this case here, we're going to blame the guitar. And it takes some time to get used to it. So I say this one all the time. For those of you who know me, I'm sorry. You're going to hear it for the 10 millionth time, but my Mandarin sucks. I suck at Mandarin, okay? There are 3-year-olds that know Mandarin better than I do. Now, they live in China, and they've been growing up in the language, but nonetheless, I suck at it. Why? Because I don't practice it. So I'm not going to be good at it. I'm not going to feel comfortable with it. So if someone drops me in China right now, I'm going to feel really uncomfortable, because I just don't practice Mandarin, okay? Same thing with you. You're going to feel awkward at first on guitar. Understand that. Have that be your mantra. Understand it. Take it to heart, and just know, because that is a big psychology piece there that will keep you rolling. If you have this thought that maybe it's just easy. You just move your fingers around and it's going to sound great. It doesn't. Never has. So it's a myth. So we got to drop our thumb behind here. We want to play on our fingertips. And when I say fingertips, I used to take my students and would take a black marker and put it right on the tips of their fingers there so that they could see it. And that little tip, that black dot would go right on the frets. Now you got most of us have 4 fingers, so you have, for the first 4 frets, you would use those specific fingers, okay? Yes, it's going to feel more comfortable using the first finger because anatomically, this is how we pick things up. We don't pick things up this way, okay? We pick them up like this. So this is a much stronger mechanism here than this, so this is going to feel awkward. So these 2 fingers are going to feel more awkward than these 2 fingers. Just get used to it. That's every guitar player, okay? But we got to practice. So if we're playing on our fingertips, we want to be as close to the fret wire as possible, okay? So what that means is this is the fret wire, this thing right here, okay? And we want to be as close to that as possible without going over. If we're back here, we're going to get this kind of buzzy sound. We don't want that. We want to be close up to the fret like that, okay? You won't have to press as hard either. So that's for the first fret. Look at my thumb. See that space there in between? Really important. If you don't have that and you're doing this, I mean, that's how to grab a shovel. That's great if you want to shovel something, but we're not shoveling, okay? We are playing guitar. It requires much more finesse, okay? So you want to drop that thumb. This might be the #1 thing, is understanding this fingertip bit here. But this, dropping that thumb, is going to help you get on the fingertips, because when you're like this, you're playing on the pads of your fingers, as you can see there. And even though you may get the sound out, it's not good when you want to go to play chords and that sort of thing later on, okay? So getting on your fingertips like that, curling that knuckle, especially that last knuckle, you want that curled, and you want to play on your fingertips. So if we were playing this 1, 2, 3, 4, using a pick or our fingers, in this case here I'm just using I'm just finger picking, then I would go 1, 2, second finger on the 2nd fret, 3rd finger on the 3rd fret, 4th finger on the 4th fret. If that feels awkward, it should. If it doesn't, you're a Martian, or you've been playing for a while, because there's nobody who picks up the guitar where that feels like, oh boy, that's just so easy, I can do this all day long. No, it feels awkward. So how do you fix that? You do it over and over again, just like anything in life, right? Other than pooping and peeing and basic things like that, you learned everything in life, and you couldn't do it at one point. So this will be the same thing. You can do this, okay? I can promise you. I've taught over 10,000 one-on-one lessons, never had a student I couldn't teach. Never, 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 ever, ever did I have one. I had students that didn't practice very much. They didn't get very good, but the ones that practiced, they got great. So here you go. So then you go to the next string. Okay? And right now I'm just finger picking here. And then you'll go to the 3rd string, and so on and so forth. This is called exercise 1. This is in the free course that I'm giving you today by clicking that first link in the description of the video. Okay, now you're going to practice that, and you're going to practice that, and you're going to practice that, and you're going to get better and better and better at it until you are like, okay, now I'm getting it, all right? That's the #1 fretting technique. Make sure there's that space. Make sure you're playing on your fingertips. Make sure you're close up to the fret. That is 99%. Listen to me when I tell you, I'm not playing around with you. It's 99% of everything you're going to be doing with the fretting hand. Get good at that. Write it down. If that's all you do is get good at that, you're going to be able to fret whatever you want to fret. When we get the chords inside of the course, you're going to be able to do this, okay? If you don't, and you do the 10 million other videos that are on YouTube, or in any other course, or my course, or anything else, you're not going to be able to do this, okay? So, sorry, I gotta be honest with you here. We gotta cut to the chase, okay? So a little tough love. That's what you gotta do with the left hand. With the right hand, it's super easy. We're gonna do a pick rest, okay? And a pick rest, I borrowed this from the classical world because I was a classical guitar player in college, and we did something called a rest stroke. And I found that it was very helpful with my students if they wanted to learn how to pick well and learn pick control. And so basically what you do is you take your pick, and by the way, when you hold the pick, you hold it like this in between the thumb and the 1st finger. Okay, that's it. Nothing fancy. You could use your 2nd finger, but that's complicating things. Just use your 1st finger like that. You might develop your own technique, but if you're just starting off, these are best practices, and there's a reason why they're best practices. So like I say, if you want to go outside of anything that I'm telling you, you can do it, But then don't come to me and complain because something isn't working right because you went outside what are the best practices, okay? That being said, there are plenty of pros that do things that don't, or that are kind of unorthodox, and I do them too. And you'll develop your own things like that, and that's okay. But start off with the ways that are tried and true, because you'll see then why it is that you should be doing that, or you might eventually go away from that and say, I like this a little bit better. But in the beginning, you need these things in order to keep you in the lines, okay? It's like learning how to drive a car. You know, in no circumstance is it good to go over that line in the beginning, right? And maybe if there's a pedestrian in front of you, right? There's caveats. There's always reasons why. But for the most part, stay from crossing over that line because there are other cars coming, okay? So basic rules that we need to stick to. So with this, now that we have our pick in our fingers like this, to practice this pick rest, go to the second string. By the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is how we number them from the high in pitch string, right? So that's high, that's low. This is going up the neck because it's going up in pitch. This is going down the neck because we're going down in pitch, right? So if we wanted to do a pick rest, what you're going to do, take your pick, put it on the second string, and pick through the second string and rest on the first string. What a lot of people do at first is such a simple thing, but I see them do it all the time. I've seen them do it for 30 seconds, a minute straight, and I'm just like, no, that's not what you do. Here's what you do. Then they'll just do this. Yeah, they're picking the string, but that's not what we're wanting to do. What we want to do is we want to pick the string and rest the pick on the next string below it. Once you get a basic idea of how that works, then you're going to go 2 strings. And then 3 strings. And this may take you an hour, may take you 5-10 minutes, but you want to practice it, right? It's not just like, oh, I got it, I can move on. Guitar is more like, oh, okay, I got it, and now I really need to get it. Now I need to integrate it, okay? So it's like anything else. If you're like throwing knives in the circus and you're like, oh, okay, well, I just don't need to hit the girl's head, right? And you're like, you throw the first one and you luck out and you're like, I got this, I got this, I got it. Just give me all the knives. No, you don't got it. You got the concept. Don't get the knife in the head, but there's more to it, right? We want to be more accurate. We want to be able to do that 10,000 times in a row, is not hit the girl in the head with a knife, okay? Let's not do that. Same thing with these techniques. We want to make sure that we're being precise, right? So there's a certain amount of repetition that's involved, okay? That is the number one thing that you're going to be doing with the picking hand. Now, I have strumming and lots of strumming exercises for you inside of the course. The first link in the description of the video. If you want that, you've got access to all that. We can't go over all that because the videos themselves would take several hours. So it's got the course has some girth to it. All right. So and it has the PDFs and anything that you would need. It's got it in there, and you can even ask me questions inside there, and I'll reply to them. Okay, so we can't go over all that today, the strumming exercises. So that's the number one technique that you're going to be doing with your picking hand. Let's talk a little bit about music, and then I'm going to get to your questions. Cool? All right, the number one thing that you need to know, well, I'm going to give you 2 things. Okay, here you go. No, I'm not. I'm going to give you one thing so I can get to your questions. I'm going to teach you how to know the notes on the fretboard, because I teach the major scale inside of the program I'm giving you. And that's probably the number one thing to know, but we have to know this other thing before then, okay? And we have to know the names of the open strings, and we need to know how to name the notes going up the fretboard. Really easy, okay? It goes like this. The string names from the lowest to the highest in pitch are E, A, D, G, B, and E. Okay, E, A, D, G, B, E. This is how I would teach my students to remember it. Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. If you guys ever watched that show, Ed, and Eddie, which is one of the shows that my daughter watched when she was little, Ed, and Eddie, they were always getting into trouble doing stuff, blowing stuff up and everything else. So I always think of those guys. So Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie, right? Easy to remember, and then you just take each letter of each one of those words and E, A, D, G, B, E. That's how you remember the strings from low to highest. Eddie ate dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie. Okay, there you go. Now, now that means that each one of those strings should be tuned to those notes. E, A, D, G, B, E. That's why they're named that, because they're tuned to those notes. Now, the musical alphabet, this is the other part of it. The musical alphabet goes from A to G. By the way, in about 1 minute here, you're going to be able to name any note on the fretboard. Okay? 2 minutes. You're going to be able to name any note on the fretboard by this technique. Okay? So the musical alphabet goes from A to G. Write it down. You don't have to write it down. It's in the course. I'm giving it to you. A to G. There's no H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Every note has a sharp. A sharp is when we can raise the note up, and it's denoted with a tic-tac-toe or a pound symbol. That's called a sharp. Every note has a sharp except for B and E, okay? And a couple ways that you remember that is it's not sharp to do a B and E, breaking and entering, right? Go to jail. Don't break into someone's house. Break B and E. Don't do a B and E. It's not sharp. So B and E don't have sharps. All the other ones do have sharps. Okay, you could also remember the Beatles song "Let It Be B and E." I don't know. That's my way. So, with that being said, watch this. If we wanted to know what this string is, we're going to do a little test right now. Here's the test. You ready? So, we know what the name of this string is. This fifth string here, right? We know it because I just told you, right? This string right here. Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. So Eddie ate, so 8 starts with A, so there you go. That's what we got an A. And that note is tuned to an A. Now we said every note has a sharp except for B and E. So if we pick, and don't worry about technique at this point, this is just understanding the neck here. If we go to the next note up, this is a half step up, by the way. Half step is the distance between one fret and the next. A whole step is equal to 2 half steps. So here would be a whole step, boom to boom, right? Two frets. So a half step up from here to here, is going to go from A, open here, to A sharp. We call this open when we just play the string like that. So this would be an A sharp. And remember, if we go through the alphabet, A, B would be the next note. And we said that B and E don't have a sharp, so B doesn't have a sharp, so we go straight to the letter C. And we can keep going. Let's do it. Does C have a sharp? Yeah, we know it does, right? Because every note has a sharp except for B and E. So we have C sharp, A, B, C, D, D sharp, because it definitely has one, A, B, C, D, E. E doesn't have a sharp, so straight from E to F. F has a sharp, so F sharp. G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, G sharp. And then back to A. So this is what we call our octave. So the 12th fret, everything starts over again. So E, A, D, G, B, E, E, A, D, G, B, E. So everything starts over again, and we got the same scenario going this way. So we could do this from any string, doesn't matter. And I have exercises for you on this inside the course. Now, I know we went over a lot of that stuff very quickly, and there's so much more to cover. And for those of you who know it already, you're like, this is basic. I don't want to do this. Right? I can hear you. I get it. We have many different people from many different countries and everything watching right now. So, and everybody's starting at a different place, and you started off in the same place. So let's all be cool with where we're at, wherever we're starting, all right? So if you want more information on all this, click the link in the description of the video. Let's go to some lessons here, okay? Okay, so, and I'm just going to start right here, right at the end of the chat here. Manos, G7 is saying, I was a classic guitar player for a lot of years. After a break, I started electric guitar 2 years ago. Any advice, tips, suggestions? Yes, absolutely. Number one, Manos, start with the course that I'm giving you today, okay? So, yeah, yes, the description's in the video, but it's also right there for you, okay? So, YourGuitarSage.com/30. Go there. It's step by step. It's like the advice is this: it's practice. Practice with passion. Give it as much time as possible, and follow a regimen. Follow something step by step, because it's going to save you a ton of heartache, okay? At least in the beginning. Later on, you can break out and do whatever you want, but learn the basics from somebody, whether it's me or it's another teacher. Like, I just want you to be successful. So whatever that looks like, if you have a teacher already, then great. But learn those basics first, and make sure you learn the basics and aren't just jumping around, because it's going to make things difficult for you, okay? Okay. Eric, it's apparent that you have relatively recently made subtle improvements to your tone and playing. Please discuss your journey, newfound motivation, resources, and the relationship to GTB. Let me know what GTB is. Oh, Gabriel the Bull. Okay. Number one, Stratman, super kind. Thank you so much for saying that. So it may appear that I have made some improvements to my tone and playing, sure. Yeah, I'm always practicing, right? But like if I stopped practicing, then it would go down, right? That's how the playing works, especially when you get to a certain level. If you don't continue to practice and hone that, then that's going to go down. But for me, since I moved to Florida here, I'm just a lot more creative. I'm designing my life in a way that allows me to have more time. So like for instance, instead of looking at email 4 times a day, I only look at it 1 time a day. Instead of looking at social 20 times a day, I may look at it twice a day. I'm batching more of my life. So when I sit down and do videos, I batch for like a week or so. So I'm doing more concentrated things like that. So like I really get in the zone, and I find that that's helpful in everything that I do. Working out, everything. Since I've been doing that with my life for the last years, several years now, but just doing more and more and being more disciplined about it, my life has absolutely transformed on every single level, and is going to continue to transform, because it's the way to do things, and it's what all the pros will tell you to do too. You know what I'm saying? So beautiful. Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate that. Okay. Hishan is saying, I'm turning 25 this year. I want to be a singer and musician, though I work in a different field at the moment. Am I late now? Absolutely not. There is no late. There is no, it's art. And anybody saying anything other than that, that's the energy you just want to stay away from, man. Naysayers and those critics who, that's all they have. That's all they have is bitchiness and criticism, right? And I can literally feel them dropping off the channel right now, because they know I've got their number. There's just people that criticize, and that's all they have. And so that's what they lean on, is the criticism, because they have to build themselves up to make themselves look bigger, because they're actually scared. So anybody saying anything different than that, hey, Sean, get away from that energy. You can do whatever you want to do. Obviously, people expect a certain level of professionalism and that sort of thing, or just being good at a particular thing. So there's that, but at the end of the day, that's also an opinion, right? Like what one person would call good music or otherwise. Okay. Okay. Good stuff. Oh, beautiful. I love this, Teresa. Just finished the course with the hubby, and as he started learning. I've played acoustic, mainly strumming, for many years, and I've learned so much. Beautiful. Thank you so much for letting us know that, Teresa. I really appreciate that. For folks that don't know what she's talking about, first link in the description of this video. It's also in the chat. I put it in just a few minutes ago. If it's not in the description of this video, which I'm 99% sure it is, okay? Okay. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to put that here too. Thank you. Great answer. Your work is easily apparent. I've been following you for years. Thank you, Stratman. Well, then that means that you've noticed some things. Yes, and I've been practicing more. What's funny is that, as a player, I would say that my fingers were definitely much more nimble years ago. And it has nothing to do with age. It has to do with practice, where I was literally just practicing for 8-10 hours a day, and sometimes longer than that when I had the opportunity to. Well, now I have 2 children, and I've got obviously students and courses and things and deadlines and all that stuff, and so not as much time. I don't have 8 to 10 hours to play a day, so it's different. But my understanding of the instrument is different, and it's kind of be like a ninja warrior, right? Like a ninja who's really young, who has all that stamina and all that within them, unbridled, unbridled belief that they can't be killed and that sort of thing. That's one thing, and that's great. But then there's that warrior who's been on the field for a long time and knows lots of stuff that young guy doesn't know. So they both have these things, and they're both great. So both can learn from both of them for sure. Okay, super good stuff. Ooh, I'm missing some here. Let me jump in. Here we go. Another point I wanted to make is the difficulty when it comes to guitar setup, etc. For starters, many guitars don't have a proper setup or even fret height, and you have to see a technician. Manos. That is module 3 in my free gift to you. First link below, where I meet with my personal guitar tech, Greg Ellis, who set this guitar up, who sets all my guitars up, has helped me buy many of my guitars, and he went through a whole regimen of guitar tech maintenance, that sort of thing, and you're going to find that in that course. Okay, so check that out. Okay, great question here. Should my fretting arm be away from my side? Should my fretting arm be away from my side? So no, not necessarily, Eddie. In fact, your fretting arm, if it's tucked in like this, will give you more of an opportunity to reach and be able to play these chords more smoothly. If your hand's out like this, if your arm's out like this, it's going to put your hand in a position that is not as comfortable. You're kind of arching your wrist here. So if it's like this, it's going to be a lot more comfortable. So like tucking that elbow in. But it needs to be something sustainable and something that's comfortable. So you want to make sure that it's that, and it's not like you're doing some sort of weird yoga move, which I love yoga, but you know what I'm saying. You're not. We're playing guitar. We're not playing yoga here, and so there you go. Okay, started learning guitar at 45. I practiced 20 minutes a day with no expectations. I'm 56 now. I can play hundreds of songs and keep learning every day. Guitar has been so important for me. I love that, Mike. So what Mike's doing, man, is he's chopping away every single day, 20 minutes, boom, 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 which is another way to do it. And it's a great way to do it because like you keep stacking, right? Another way to do it is to go woodshed for a long time, but you still want to be coming to your guitar every day. So if you can do the 20 minutes every day and have some days where you really woodshed, like on a Saturday or Sunday, where you really learn and you delve into a course and you learn all of this material, that's the best of both worlds, okay? If you're going to just do one, I'd say do what Mike's doing here, 20 minutes every day, because it's consistent and it's a ritual, and you'll build on from what you did the day before, okay? Robert, the age-old question, how many guitars should one own? Well, there's a lot of answers to that. As many as you can, as many as your wife will allow. Honestly, for me, it's just what I need. And I'm a little bit different, obviously, because this is also my vocation. So, like, if I want a particular guitar and I know it's going to help me with a particular something, then I just get it. But I also don't like having guitars that I don't use. So in the last broadcast inside of UGS, which, by the way, we're doing all of our live UGS broadcasts today. So if you end up, by the way, if you end up taking advantage of the free course today, and if you end up pulling the trigger on the pro membership, we have 2 other live broadcasts today in addition to this. I did one earlier at 10:30 today, and it's just for our inner sanctum, just for our UGS folks. So it's a smaller broadcast and that sort of thing. Smaller as in there's less people there, so you get your questions answered, and we really go into depth and into some stuff. But I was mentioning that I had sold a 1951 Gibson ES-175, and I was looking for it the other day, and I literally forgot that I had sold it months ago. Totally forgot. And even now, I don't remember the guy's face, his name, don't remember a text or anything, but I did see that I had a Craigslist ad, and I vaguely remember selling it now. And I remember saying to myself, I don't use this guitar enough. It's not fair. It needs to go to someone, and that's what I did, is I sold it. So, yeah. Let me see if I can understand this question. Any anti-worry medicinal tips which stop us from seeing through? Any anti-worry medicinal tips? Okay, well, let me tell you, I think I understand what it is that you're saying, so let me tell you some things that I do. Number one, I'll tell you from like a psychological standpoint, and then even from a nootropics standpoint, because I love nootropics and I love kind of doing things that that help activate different parts of your being and what have you that might not normally be activated. So, so as far as like worrying, I don't know, here's my thought on worry, and this is one of those things that I think we all take this journey in life, and we have to decide at some point whether we want to let it go or not. But the things that I don't really worry about anything. I try not to worry about anything, but definitely anything that's outside of my control, I try not to even give it any energy, any mind energy, any thoughts, any talking about it, discussions about it, writing about it, tweeting about it. I try not to. It doesn't mean that I don't. I'm human, and I mess up. But my philosophy is, if I have no control of it, what would I care? You know, like, the caring about it doesn't change anything. And this is partially what's wrong with many people in society today, is they think that the tweet or the whining about it or something is actually changing something, and it's not. And I know people will drop off just because I said that just now, and that's fine. We don't want that energy anyhow. But what does change things is lifting up a hammer and doing a thing. Going out and volunteering, going out and changing things, but just whining about things don't. So anything that I can't control, not only do I not worry about it, I just don't even think about it. It's just not in my mind to think about it. But the things that I can change, I do think about those things, and I have a proactive plan. Like if I want to work out and I want to be, stronger, I have a plan. I create a plan. I listen to the guys that are doing the things that get you to the place that you need to go. As far as guitar, I have a plan. You make a plan. You be proactive about it. And then as far as, actual nootropics or that sort of thing, L-theanine is great, GABA, L-DOPA. These are things, natural supplements that you can take that help with dopamine and being calm and those sorts of things. Obviously CBD, so many other things, and so many other things that I take, alpha GPC, inositol, glycine. I could go right down the list. I probably took 20 nootropics this morning that are just part of my daily routine. You know what I mean? And at this point, it's like an elixir that I take or drink, and it just helps. Especially since I literally slept 0 minutes last night. I did not sleep at all last night. I don't know why. I was so jacked up from something. I don't know why. Recently here, I've been sleeping great. Okay, Mike is saying, what would be your advice for writing songs, Mike? I would say do it often, write with other people, learn about the craft, because it indeed is a craft. Take my wife's course, that's the #1 songwriting course on Udemy. She's a fantastic songwriter. She's written songs for, God, you name it. She's so many people, a lot of country artists, pop artists, Carrie Underwood, Garth Brooks, Disney. In fact, the Happily Ever After, the firework display that they're bringing back again after people got upset that they took it away because they wanted the 50th anniversary thing. My wife wrote that song, so if you go to Disney and the fireworks and Tinkerbell and all that stuff, she wrote that tune. But anyhow, take her course. It's a great course, and she knows what she's doing. She's on over 13 million albums, and she's a fantastic songwriter. So I'd say be passionate about it, dig in, get right with other people, you know? Okay. Okay, Manos is saying, I bought a Telecaster type guitar for a second unit, but I soon realized that its neck is quite thick for me and causes wrist pain. So I guess I can't play any type of Fender guitars. No, it's probably just that particular guitar, because I mean, you know, necks are different, right? Yeah. Okay, beautiful. Michelle is saying, finished your beginner course for the second time in 2.5 years. Took it when I was just beginning and just went through it again, looking forward to what's next. Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much, Michelle. And Heen, thank you so much, friend, for the super chat. You're one of my go-to teachers, helping me get back to my first love, music. Oh, beautiful, Heen. Thank you so much. Very kind. Appreciate that. Okay. Okay, Daryl here is saying, Daryl is saying, hey Eric, when you're improvising lead or rhythm to a jam track, what steps do you take to make your improv fit the song? Okay, that's great, Daryl. So usually what I'll do is I will, the very first thing I try to do is I find out what the key of the song is. I try to, it's what I do. I find what the key of the song is. And then from there, you know, is it major or is it minor? Is it calling for pentatonic? Is it calling for diatonic? You know, is it the 7-note scale, the 5-note scale, the blues scale? Like what's the vibe of it? And then I'll try to kind of shape the tone up to match what it is. So if it's something kind of ethereal and Pink Floyd-y, then I might use something that's a little bit more ambient. If it's, you know, more rock and roll, I'm not going to be using a ton of reverb, you know. So I try to match the tone, of course, with whatever it is that I'm listening to. And then just start noodling around with notes and trying to phrase and find my footing. It's also helpful to know what the chords are, because if you know what the chords are, now you can work with the chords, and you can outline the chords, and you can use those color notes to make it sound like you know exactly what you're doing, because you do know what you're doing. Make sense? Okay. How many pairs of shoes does your wife have? That many. Yes, Gary. Yes, exactly. That's amazing. Or Alcat wrote that. Gary was saying, very funny. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Gary. Super kind. I appreciate that, man. Good energy is important, man. Be around people with good energy. Man, it's number one thing I think I've learned in the last few years is to just get away from people with bad energy. Stop feeling guilty that you're getting away from people with bad energy. Some people are just vampires, man. You can be around them for 100 years and you're never going to move them, but you're going to get pulled down yourself. Don't do it, man. The world isn't better because you sit there and talk with someone who's got a bad attitude. It doesn't become better. It becomes better when your heart gets better, when you become happier. If you are happy, you have a wellspring inside of you that you can share with the rest of the world. If you're rich, you have money that you can share with the world. If you're poor, you don't have money you can share with the world. Nothing against being poor. If you want to be poor, but if you don't have the money, you can't give it away. I don't care what kind of math you're doing. If you don't have money, you can't give it away. If you don't have happiness, you can't give it away. If you don't have energy, you can't give it away. Sounds pretty logical, but it took me a long time to get that one, and I'm still working on it. Okay, Ron is saying, just starting with you, what's the most important sequence of lesson videos? Ron, I'd be a liar if I said it was anything different than the exact set of lessons that is my gift to you today. That is number one, because it's the stuff you're going to be using forever. It's so foundational. You're going to build everything upon it, and that is the most important sequence, bar none. Just absolutely. Yeah, I love this. My guitar is my way to deal with stress and worry. Playing it's my meditation, and you can get in a meditative state from playing. That's what I talk about, just being in that zone. You can totally get into that zone by just playing guitar. Absolutely. Oh, beautiful. Larry's saying, I advise anyone who's in UGS to get the 365 plan. Lots of great exercises in there. Indeed. And in fact, if you're in UGS Pro, you'll get the 365 guitar plan for free. Like that will come with the program, okay? All right. Jim is saying, I've been playing since I was about 13. I have a Martin D35. We're going to go about another 9 minutes here, friends. We may go a little further, I'll see. I have a Martin D35, but arthritis has set in. What's a great sounding guitar that is simpler to play? Do I need to go to an electric like Gibson? Well, electrics typically are easier to play. The strings are usually closer to the fretboard and that sort of thing, so yeah. But not a particular name brand because it depends on how those guitars are set up. You can buy a Gibson that's set up wrong or an Epiphone that's set up right. And I've done that. I've bought Les Pauls that played terribly, Gibson Les Pauls, and I bought Epiphone, cheaper Les Pauls that played great. So it depends on the setup. Get it set up by a professional, get it set up low, and you'll be good. Now, I used to have wicked arthritis. In fact, if you look, I don't know if you can tell right now, this finger is crooked. See how that finger's crooked? This finger is crooked. I can't straighten it out. I'm trying to. This finger, can't straighten it out. All these other ones, this is fine. This one was actually broken as well. Pinky is also messed up. So my fingers are jacked up pretty good. I can't, you can see right there, this kind of scar right there. I can't bend this finger back any further than that. These guys bend back fine. This guy didn't bend back any further because I was bit by a Rottweiler right there. Had 40-something stitches. Almost took these two fingers off, which I guess I could still hold the pick like that eventually, or like that if you didn't get this finger. But this finger almost came off. It was pretty wicked. All that being said, I've had lots of problems with my hands over the years, and cutting out grains was one of the #1 things that I could do, was cutting out grains and getting a less acidic diet. And that really, I don't have arthritis. It maybe like 1% now. Like every now and then, if it's like really cold and I've been eating not so good, which I almost always eat good, but every now and then if I don't, sometimes I'll feel it. So you might want to check the diet out too, Jim. I know, that's a whole nother subject. Okay, I loved your Jimmy Buffett lesson the other day. Oh, beautiful. Okay, thank you, Gary. When you solo, do you mostly use major and minor pentatonic? Do you just play major scales? Comment on modes. Just starting to learn about modes. Okay, so now 99% of the time, you're going to either be playing in major or minor. And that can be, you can almost think about it as just two different tonal centers, but in some ways, it's the same scale. And I teach that inside the program. It'd be just too much to teach at this point right now. But essentially, the major is like, it's kind of like the sun and the moon. They're both part of our system. C major has the same notes as A minor. A minor has the same notes as C major. G major has the same notes as E minor. E minor has the same notes as G major. So there's this, for every major key, there's an equal minor key. And every minor key, there's an equal major key, meaning they share the same sets of notes and the same sets of chords. So, so that's easy, and I teach that inside the course, relative, major, and minor, if you're looking for it. So when it comes to pentatonic scale, those are kind of choice notes that really work well and that are very stable. So usually I instruct folks to start with pentatonic or blues if they want to learn phrasing and that sort of thing. And then you could go to, straight up major and minor scales. As far as modes, you're just not going to use them very often. And in fact, when you do, you're still really playing major and tweaking a note here and there. And that's how I prefer to look at it instead of thinking about it like, okay, this scale for this particular chord. Because if you do that, you're going to think scale and you're going to play scale over that chord. As opposed to going, okay, well, that one chord that's played is going to tweak this one note in the chord or in the chord progression. That's it. So I just need to know when that chord comes up that I can also hit this other note. And that's how most kind of players who have graduated in mentality and thinking about this sort of thing. That's mainly how they think. Met a guy one time a jazz player. This was like in a little club. Actually, the first club I ever played in Nashville. It was called, I don't know what it was called. It was some pizza parlor, but it's down there near 21st in Vanderbilt. But I saw this guy playing, a jazz player, and it was really cool stuff. And it was really kind of when I was kind of getting into a little bit of that and just kind of interested in some different playing and what have you. And I said, man, how are you thinking, like in regards to chords and modes and what have you? And he goes, man, I don't know any modes. I don't know any scales. I said, what do you mean? You're playing all sorts of modes. And he's like, I don't know any, so I don't know what I'm doing really. And I was like, isn't that interesting? So what he was doing is he was taking the chord that was being played, he was using his ear and working around that chord. So eventually that's what you end up having a mode, or so you have a scale, major, minor, and then like one note's tweaked in it or something like that, and then that's what people are calling modes. And technically that's true, but when you think, okay, I got to play a mode over this chord, it typically comes out as just a scale, and it feels a little bit like forced, if you will, okay? Okay, so Stratman is saying, have you talked about creating a psychological related site? Have you pursued this? Stratman, I have a little bit. I've actually done a few videos where I'm out on the beach and I'm talking about some of this stuff because I'm kind of in the flow. I'm in that flow state. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I'll probably eventually start uploading them, but I have a few other things that I'm wanting to do, some other projects that I'm wanting to do right now and establish, and especially with UGS and YourGuitarSage and all that stuff. I'm really wanting to get that stuff tweaked down before I think about doing that. But what Stratman's talking about, friends, is you notice sometimes I will rabbit hole into, it's like we'll be talking about guitar, but then I'm talking about psychology and meditation and nootropics and spirituality and those sorts of things. It's because so many of these things have served me so well and have become such a part of my life in everything that I do, from workouts to sleep to playing guitar to relationships to everything else. And I found such magic, or whatever you want to call them. I just found that they work absolutely so overwhelmingly well and so obvious. And then there's, for those that are, non-believers, there's all sorts of science to back it up. And I do that because what does even the word science mean anymore? But because there's so many people that have jacked with it and lied so much over the last few years here that it's such a ridiculous thing to hang one's hat on that. It's still opinion and politics and everything else. Anyhow, all that being said, I found that a lot of this stuff just pertains to your life and helps so much with your life. And I want to help people. It's one of my main goals, is to help beings, not even just people, but beings, animals, the world. That's my desire. And so how can I do that? Well, I love to teach people how to play guitar, and I've sneakily helped them through guitar with other things. But like, how cool would it be if I didn't even have to talk about scales per se, and I could just get to the meat of the subject and be able to talk about it, and people not be like, well, why are you talking about meditation? So you're supposed to be teaching about guitar. And I get it. I get it. So, but it'd be cool if I could do both, wouldn't it? Okay, so Ken is saying, I only think in terms of scales. When actually doing a mode, I just shift the thinking as I am in a particular scale, but using a different tonal center. Yeah, and Ken, different people do it different ways, and if it works for you, great, because different brains work different ways. That's why I'm such a non-stickler when it comes to rules. It's like I have ideas, and I have obviously books and courses and thousands of videos that I've created, and I definitely have opinions on things. But at the end of the day, if Stevie Ray Vaughan was only playing with fingers 1 and 2, which he didn't, but let's just say he did, if he just played with fingers 1 and 2, and he held his pick like this, I tell you don't do that. I say hold it like this. If he held it like this, and you were learning blues, and I said, don't ever do this. You can't play guitar. You can't play blues that way. And you saw Stevie Ray Vaughan playing blues like that, who are you going to listen to? Listen to the guy that was teaching it, talking about it and not being able to play like that, or the guy who's playing like that, right? So it's totally fine to break the rules if it serves you in regards to playing, okay? Okay, my improv was better before I started studying improvisational theory. Any related tips on mindset, walking Bill? That's really interesting, Bill, and I've heard that every now and then, that sometimes people will learn music theory and it seems to stifle them a little bit. And I can see where that would, because you're like, well, I can't go there. You know, you're seeing in your mind's eye, you're seeing the image of the scale on the fretboard, if you will, and you go, wow, I can't go to that note, but I can go to this note, and then what have you. So walking Bill, what I would do is I would intentionally, when you're improvising, try to do some things that are going to get you out of that. So for instance, tune the guitar differently. Do a dad-gad tuning. Learn slide. Do something to where everything's messed up and you can't go to the notes that you always go to, because that's what's happening, is you're relying on those specific places. And so if your ear's telling you, hey, I can go here, I can go there, then not allowing that pattern to be present is going to kind of force you to go back to just using your ear. That being said, I suspect that you're going to have a problem with that, because there are certain places where you expect the notes to be. So all that being said, I think what you're saying there could potentially also not be 100% correct, but that is your interpretation of it. Not saying anything's wrong with what you're saying, but like, you know, our interpretation, as we've seen the last few years, everybody sees things differently, you know. So our interpretation is what we see out of our eyes, so we think that that's what's true. Maybe, may not be, but I think there's some validity there to what you're saying. I would just do some things to challenge yourself to where you don't have those shapes to work with by changing the tuning of the guitar or something like that. Okay. Okay, Gary's saying, Eric, do you play piano? I do very little bit, but nothing. I would never say I'm a piano player. I took a couple years of it in college, and I understand. I could play my scales and stuff, and I know I could assemble chords and stuff because I know the theory, but I don't play. You know. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Roger. Keep around the positive people for sure. All right, my friends, I'm going to go here because I have a 1:30 with my UGS folks. So if you are joining today, friends, if you are getting into the system is what I'm saying. If you want to join Pro and join us at 1:30, would love to see you there. If not, take your time in the program. It's there for you. It's your gift. It's not timed or anything. It's just literally my gift to you. It'll be there in 20 years from now, okay? Except it'll probably be even better because I'm going to improve it like I'm doing everything, right? So enjoy it. Have fun. When you're in there, ask any questions that you have. I'm there to guide you. I'm there to help you. I got 1,000 or so lessons here on YouTube. Hit subscribe, like, all that good stuff if you'd like. Let other folks know and all that. I'm here for you. I'm passionate about playing guitar. I'm passionate about you being successful in playing guitar, and I know you can do it because, like I said, I've taught 10,000 one-on-one lessons, and I never had a student that couldn't do it. I had students that didn't practice all the time, and that showed in their progress. So the more practice, the more better. It's that simple, but it's helpful if you have some sort of regimen, some sort of step-by-step process. That's what UGS standard is for, and it's available for you. First link in the description of this video. Thanks so much for watching, my friends. I'll see you, if you're in UGS, I'll see you in less than a half hour there. And otherwise, I'll see you in another video online here, friends. See you.